Yeah, the two, the back wall, the two central walls.
You ready?
She's not.
She's not?
She will be.
Oh. Want me to introduce her?
Sure. Worcester.
That's right, I told you.
Go around. You go around.
I will. Give it, I can show you.
There you go.
Hey, how we all doing? Wasn't that food good? How about giving a hand to the kitchen crew? I had 2 strawberry shortcakes. No, I didn't. Somebody might have missed one. I hope you all enjoyed it, and you've got more enjoyment to come. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker tonight. Her name is Marie Erskine, and she's got her helper Jim here, and I think you've all met them by now. They've been members of the Peonies Society since, I think they said 2008. That's longer than we've been members, so they're probably the longest, well, maybe not, Thompson's been here longer than that. I'm looking around. I think other than Thompson's, they've been here longer than anyone. Maybe Ann, I'm not sure. So anyway, we've got a treat in store, because if you haven't heard Marie tell a story before, you're in for a treat. She's told me some that I'd like to tell, but I'm not going to do that tonight. Marie is a registered nurse and certified in the care and management of recalcitrant wounds. I wish they wouldn't put long names like that in here, but I think I got that right. She graduated from the Hospital of St. Raphael and Albertus Magnus College in New Haven, Connecticut. She obtained certificates in landscape and design and in landscape and problem solving from Quinnipiac University. Marie belongs to the Wallingford, to the Wallingford, Connecticut Garden Club, where there she taught floral and landscape design for many years. She is currently the president of Augusta Nature Club and Education Center. They manage 75 acres of natural forest, which is open to the public as green space for all to enjoy year-round. She became interested in peonies after noticing that besides their beauty and fragrance, they are incredibly resilient, tough, and require minimal care compared to other perennials. Jim and Marie made the decision to move to Maine in 2006. The problem was they had to move in February. The story you will hear tonight explains how they moved 40 peonies in the dead of winter. I got to hear this. This is going to be interesting. So buckle up, and here's Marie.
Thank you
He made me walk around.
Yeah, hey, I got cables over here, so
All kinds
Have
of
anybody
cables.
trip
I'll be
and
on
get hurt.
the floor in a minute.
okay.
Well, can you hear me all right? Do we need the microphone or can you hear me now? Can you hear me all right? Okay, just put it up.
Can move that stand around. Do you want me to move that around front to where you are? Here,
Around this side.
here, let's move it right around. Let's move it right around.
Okay.
Here. You want that?
Oh, I get to hold them right. Yeah. Okay, and over in the corner we have a, no,
There.
Okay.
How's that?
Now
Does that look
we're
better?
ready for work. So, can everybody hear me okay? If you can't hear, just raise your hand.
you're good. Yeah.
As close as you want.
Well, thank you for having us here tonight. We're glad we finally got to a meeting. It's been a couple of years, I think, since we've been able to get to a meeting with illnesses, COVID, and
New knees.
have new knees. So here we are, finally. The name of our talk tonight is You Can't Have Just One. And that refers to peonies. Once you have one, it's addictive. Jim and I are going to show you tonight and explain how we managed to move our 40 peony plants from our yard in Connecticut, Wallingford, Connecticut, to our retirement home here in not here in Jefferson, but in Maine, Jefferson, Maine. Excuse me. In the dead of winter in February 2006. These were very old peonies. One was at least 150 years old and belonged to Jim's great-great-grandmother. That peony moved from South Paris, Maine to Randolph, Massachusetts, then to Cheshire, Connecticut, and finally wound up at the Wallingford property. We looked around and settled on a house in Jefferson. I can't see what you have up here.
Okay, well, this was the Cheshire
This
property.
is where the peonies came
Came
from.
from.
These were, this is the Cheshire Reformatory, not where Jim lived. Where Jim's grandfather worked. He was the superintendent. But his grandmother had, these are all peony plants, all those little white bumps or light colored bumps. She had this huge peony garden. And most of those came to the Wallingford house where Jim grew up. So those are the peonies we wanted to move. They were at the Wallingford house. So, we wanted to go to Jefferson because the family had a summer camp on Damascotta Lake. And we were the ones, because we lived on the East Coast, and we were the closest family members, we were designated to open and close the camp in the spring and in the fall. So we thought we'd buy a house near the lake. So we found an old 1800s but the style was, it was a farmhouse and
Typical Maine farmhouse.
typical Maine farmhouse, but the
Federal?
design it wasn't Federalist, it was I'll think of it. It's written here somewhere. Anyway, we wanted to restore some of it, and it was near the camp, and we could see the lake in the wintertime. We're not right on the lake, but we can see it. So we decided to move, and we bought the house. The house has some interesting history in the town of Jefferson. There was a man who was a deacon. His name was Ebenezer Hall, and he moved to Jefferson Nobleboro town line in the 1700s, and he built a log cabin. He married and had 9 children. He was very active in Jefferson politics and town goings-on. Each of those children had a house and a farm on East Pond Road. So all of those houses are still exist, except for one that fell into disrepair. So there are 8 Ebenezer Hall descendant houses on East Pond Road. Our house was built by one of Ebenezer's grandsons, Eben Hall, and that family stayed in the house for quite a long time. Eben Hall's grandson actually built the house and lived in it for a long, long time. The house changed hands out of the family in the early 70s. So there were a lot of original things in the house, and we had plans to restore some of it and just pick away at it and
Mhm.
make it our own. But we wanted to bring the peonies with us, so we did. So where are we? I can't.
We're at the
Oh,
hang on.
we have to go
Let me
to
see if
the
I
rock.
can. There we go.
What's all that white stuff?
That's
Yeah,
a little bit of
that's
snow.
the-
Anybody recognize that? That's snow. This is where we decided to. Wait,
I'm sorry.
Slow down.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
There.
This is where we decided to put the peonies.
There.
I'll explain what happened. I called the extension center and asked them for some advice, and they were extremely helpful. They were encouraging, thinking that we would have success with our plan. We wanted to move them all. This was in the fall when I talked to them.
Mhm.
And they said to dig them up, pot them up, heal them in a sunny spot under a big bed of leaves, dried leaves, and then to about 4 feet tall or high, and then cover that with a permeable landscape cloth. So we did that, and then they said do another layer on top of that, same thing, just double what you did, and then forget about them till it's time to move. So we did that,
Mhm.
potted them all up, and we cut back the stems, got them ready for winter, just like we would normally, potted them up and covered them, and then forgot about them until February. We dug them out of the snow and ice. They were frozen solid. They were the last things to get put on a moving truck. Well, we have friends helping us move, and they said, "Why are we moving these pots?" I said, "You'll understand. In the spring, you'll understand." So our arrival here in Maine was in February, and it was uneventful. We didn't have a lot of snow on the ground, so we were able to put those pots in 2 rows by the garage, which is a southern exposure. And we covered them with a tarp. We made like a tent with the landscape cloth. And then we just left them all winter. Waited for the winter to come, and it did,
You did.
as you'll see.
No, you saw. We already did the winter.
Well, let me
You
just
didn't
see
see
where
it?
we
Oh,
are.
okay.
So the snow came. Anybody know what that white stuff is? We haven't had much of it. I'm concerned about my peonies. Anybody worried? I don't think they've been cold enough. So we weren't able to really get at those pots, but when the snow banks receded, we were able to take a peek at what was going on. And they were starting to bud a little bit, and then lo and behold, they started shooting up those red fronds. And we figured we needed to do something about them. We can't leave them in pots. So we picked a spot in the yard.
Well, before that, when the fronds started pushing the landscape
Yeah, we
cloth,
took the landscape
we
cloth
pulled the
off.
landscape cloth off, and this is what we saw after about a week and a half. They
They-
just went to an express mode and,
They just
and
bloomed
bloomed.
right in the pots. So we were desperate to get them into the ground. In retrospect, peonies are so resilient. I often wonder if they would have been all right if we just left them in the pots. But we decided on a place to put a new bed in the backyard. We hired a fellow to come and rototill it. I tested the soil, amended the soil. The soil was not too bad, but there was a lot of clay in it. So we added some rotted compost and some 10-10-10 fertilizer. And then we straightened that out, put some landscape cloth down, and made holes for the plants. And we planted, and we planted, and we planted 40 plants. And it was our lawn tractor was set up with the lights shining out the garden. I had lanterns out there and we had moonlight. So we're out there in the dark planting these peonies. But we did it, got them all planted, and we let that settle in a little bit, and then we put a soaker hose down and then covered the whole thing with mulch, being careful not to cover the crowns of the plants. So that's where they spent the spring. We didn't harvest or bother them except for weeding and keeping the bed watered. We let that go for 3 years like that so they could develop. And you'll see some of the pictures of the peonies are rather small. So we left them alone, and they bloomed. They all made it, including Jim's great-grandmother's peony. And there it is. You can see from our garden in Wallingford, there's some Tradescantia still left in that one. We didn't weed that out. But this is Granny's peony, this red bomb. Very, very old, very, very fragrant, and was always the first one to bloom in the garden. And I say was because Granny's peony did very well, but Marie decided that she needed to move the peony to the front row so I could see it from the kitchen window. Well, it didn't like that. I transplanted it, I was very careful with it, and I would look out the window and I swear that peony was like this. And it finally expired. I was brokenhearted, and I'm hoping that there's a piece of a root down there that will shoot up at some point. But we'll see. I lost 2 other peonies, fern leaf, and those were the only casualties. I don't know why the fern leaf isn't happy. It looks like a little creature with 2 eyes and the beard here. I don't know why they don't like it. I'm going to try fern leaf again. It's more of a rock garden plant. So that's how they got into the ground and did well. Let's see what else I have to say about that. Where are we? When you're behind me.
We're going into looking at what is in the bed.
Okay. I just want to see what else is here. Bloomed, survived, fern leaf. We've added some new specimens. We've been very, very careful about not going overboard. One of the first things they teach you in landscaping school is restraint. Because if you don't control that, you could wind up with a hodgepodge of everything. And that happens all the time. If you can control it and use restraint, you can enjoy the plants, and you don't have this hodgepodge all over the place. The other thing is you can buy too much for a collection, and you wind up having to hire staff because you just can't manage it all. So we added a few specimens. There are many, many that I would like to have, but I go visit them. We visit them at we're down in Jefferson, so we can get to the Coastal Botanical Garden. We're members down there. And you go visit flowers and vegetables, and then you come home and let them do the weeding. Because we're members, we get to go after hours at the garden, and it's like fairies come out at night. The staff works in the evening, and they're weeding, and I just love to grab a couple and bring them home with me. It's really, really nice. So anyway, we practice restraint, and any gardening that I've done, we've done it together.
Yeah.
We've made it naturalized. I believe in planting it, feed it, do what you can for it, and then it has to do its own thing. We've naturalized hundreds of,
You're gonna show them that later.
yeah,
Yeah.
of daffodil bulbs.
Let's go into what is in the garden,
Okay,
the new stuff.
yeah. The,
This one is
New-
not new.
the new things that are in the garden is this
That's not
ivory-
new. Okay. That's a bomb.
show grannies,
That's a-
fern leaf. This is an old-time white. This is one of the old ones. It's not a new one. Then there's Barcella,
Yep.
ivory white, La Fleur, Sarah Bernhardt, crinkled white, coral sunset, Gay Paris, and Mrs. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, my heroine, and a cascade of Sarah Bernhardt and Festiva Maxima.
And
This
sugar and spice.
and sugar and spice. Now the sugar and spice is pretty new. I think it's only a couple of years. I can't remember the date, but I got that one at the peony auction in fall. I think it was 2 falls ago.
Something like that.
And the thing got sent to my house. It was from Edelman's. And I quickly dug some, we were both having surgeries and we had an automobile accident. It was just nuts. So I quickly had the kid across the street help me dig a little plot. And we stuck the coral plant in and some others that we had gotten at the division party. And Roger always talks about bone meal. He uses bone meal all the time, and his peonies are like, oh, magical. So I said, yeah, I never used that. I was afraid of it because it draws animals, and we live in animal country. So I put some bone meal way down in the bottom, and I had the sugar and spice together with those new roots we had gotten. And I look out there the next morning, they're all dug up. So I go out and I can see scratch marks, and it's probably a skunk or some kind of critter. So I replanted them all. The only one that wasn't touched was that brand new one from Edelman's. And that thing looked like it was on steroids. The stems were huge, the eyes were enormous. So it wasn't touched though. So I fixed everything up, back in the house. Next morning, same thing. They're all dug up again. I went through that, except for Edelman's. So I called Edelman's and I asked them, I told them what the situation was, and they were so concerned about, you would think I was talking about a child. They were so concerned about this peony, and they even called me back to see how the peony was. So I said, there's gotta be something that you put on these plants when you ship them out. And the girl I was talking to said, I'm going to check that for you. So I don't remember the chemical. It was something they spray on their plants when they ship them out. It helps the wounds to heal, and it keeps them robust. Well, this past season, with all that rain, I was surprised we got anything in the garden. That thing bloomed, and we'll show you a picture
That's
of
it
that.
right there.
Oh, there it is. That was a root like this. Of course, they were this thick. But there it is. That's sugar and spice. And that's in the ground just not even a whole year. With planted that in the fall.
Mhm.
And there it is. Those flowers are like this. But Edelman's called, and they want to know how the peony went. I have to get the name of the chemical that they spray on their plants, because I would use it at home to keep critters away. So, yeah, quite the boss. So, okay, that was sugar and spice, and I have here a note, keep things simple. When we
Yes.
keep things simple, we just naturalize everything. I'll just tell you a little bit about what's in our yard. We have,
Well, let's go through the rest of the bed. I'll just go through quickly.
Jim will show you what's
This
in the
is-
bed. I
this
didn't
was
name them
about
all.
the-
These are old-time peonies.
Most of
are
these
from
pictures are
Wallingford.
old time, and these are the second and third year maybe, of the size of the plants. And, so we were happy with what we had back then. But these plants, as you'll see, have grown. And this one you want to talk about, because
This
this
one,
is,
we had an article
thought
in
something
our
was wrong with it.
newsletter about blunting, that, I think it was Kevin. Yeah, you wrote an article about blunting of the buds. It's all like crinkled and it doesn't open.
Bud blast, bud blast, bud blast.
Bud blast. Well, it sounded like what our plants do, not all of them, but the old time ones do. It looks all crinkled up and like it's diseased, but then if you leave it alone, it just explodes into this huge big bomb. And I didn't know if the flowers you were talking about never opened up or what happened to them. I know they had some problems up at the farm with their, what's that?
There was one that has a problem with that
Blunting.
issue, and I think that the farm dug those out, a particular variety.
Because they were marketing those for sale and they never opened up. It was strange, but anyway, I digress. But when I get the name of that chemical, I'll let folks know what it is because it was magical.
Okay.
So where do you want to
we're
go?
at the, behind you.
Okay, we're in the garden now. This is Sarah Bernhardt.
And
And
then this one, yeah.
this just surprised us. I'm not certain what that is, so I will let you know, keep you posted. The
Does anybody,
leaves-
I'm just gonna do this.
The leaves look like a transactional, the little,
They don't normally make any fertile seeds. It's probably, do you have any tree peonies?
no,
No?
no.
Then it's probably a hybrid of some sort.
Okay.
And then there's this poor little thing, I was hoping that might be Granny's, Granny's wasn't too far away from that. So, anyway, you
And
wanna
then,
go through the rest of
mhm.
the old ones? So we have daffodils naturalized all under a front hedge of lilacs, and we have a whole side yard of miniature daffodils that just do their own thing by a stone wall. There's also a high bush cranberry or viburnum on the side yard that is absolutely enormous, and it makes the most gorgeous white blossoms in the spring. And in the fall, it's covered with gorgeous red berries and calls every bird in the neighborhood to our yard. I don't feed the birds anymore. We really miss that, but we had an infestation of rats and we had to stop that. It was just incredible.
The fundraiser is next.
Yeah. Well, let's see, there was something else. We have a secret garden down in the south end
I
of
can
the,
show a picture of that.
it's down in the woods, it's a fern garden, and we have table and chairs in there, and you can sit there with a glass of wine after you finish weeding. Then there's the peonies, the viburnum, And what else did we put in there? Yes, we do use the garden for parties. We had a fundraiser for the Historical Society in Jefferson, and that garden was open for 2 hours, and we earned $500 in that amount of time for the Historical Society. We've had Rotary Club meetings in the garden, and it's been a lot of fun. And they all survived. I mean, we're very proud of the fact that, except for Granny's and that fern leaf, they're all still with us. Did you?
And that you delivering.
Oh, that's me.
We sold-
People wanted to
we sold
buy some
stems.
flowers when they came for the tour, the open garden. And at the time, people had so many questions, and there was really tremendous interest in the peonies, to the point where people signed up for roots when we divided them and we shared peony roots. So somebody bought some to take home. And this guy, nothing usually bothers peonies, but I went out one morning and this critter was on the picnic table munching on a bud. And that's the first time I've ever seen that happen. I let him get away with it, and he hasn't done it again.
He probably died.
We have cats around now, so the cat will take care of them. This is the back of the house. This is where the peony bed is, and this is where we have our parties out here. And this over here is a slope. The ground sort of slopes down. Roger will pay good money for a video of me falling down that hill, rolled all the way down, and I couldn't get up because there was nothing. And then I'm struggling to get up. Shoulder replacement and knee replacement, it impedes you a little bit. So finally Jim came out and he says, "Oh, there you are." I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, what am I doing? I'm sunbathing." So, to be noted, if you're going out in the garden, take your cell phone with you, because you never know. But I did make it up. He came to help me. I said, "No, don't touch me. I've got to get up by myself." So practice getting up. So just be advised.
This next picture is the first bloom that we picked after we planted, or replanted the peonies from Connecticut. And it turned out pretty good.
That's an old time peony, and it just fills the whole room with fragrance.
So,
And now, where's my,
this,
the spider?
oh, don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, let me know.
and this one I took down in
Gilsland.
I just couldn't miss it. So start them young.
Can't start too early.
Yeah. And
That's
then,
when we went down to Gilsland, remember that?
Yeah, was that,
The
was
ice
that-
that
cream
was that-
social?
that time.
Yeah,
The other thing we have in the gardens is protectors, things that come out and help maintain the status quo.
There he is. There's our helper. This is Argeo orientii, and it's called the garden spider. You probably have seen plenty of them around. The females are larger than the male. They can grow up to an inch. Males are only about 1/4 of an inch long. They make a big orb web, and they put a zigzag in the middle of it, and that reinforces the web. And they catch all kinds of things. Lots of mosquitoes, gnats, flies, aphids, and other bothersome pets. And they live for about a year and die after the frost. They store up food bundles, and they make this huge pantry for the egg sac they leave behind. So those babies are all set when they hatch. The pantry's right there. We had a couple of them make webs on our back
Hmm.
windows, and those spiders are so smart. We leave the back light on and it draws moths
yeah.
or other things, and they were having a feast.
It
I
was
mean,
like-
they're really amazing to
It
watch.
was like a McDonald's sign in the desert.
So, yes, flashing. So, are there any questions so far? Because Jim has put together a little,
Yeah, this stuff, everything here came out of Marie's garden. I
this
saw
are-
that one day and I said, we have a layer here, we have this beautiful selection of stuff in the bird bath. And the peony in behind it, and off in the distance are the lupins
There-
that we put in.
there were no lupins on this property when we got it. You can see the lupins in the back there. Everything's naturalized so that they kind of come together. This is a giant peachy hydrangea, that big bump back there. And in the corner down there is my secret garden where the ferns are.
I'll show that in just a second.
And this is part of the lupin bed. The viburnum is up that hill that I rolled down.
Oops, okay,
And there's lupins and bumblebees.
sure, hang on a second. Okay, it's not gonna show, never mind.
What did you want?
I was gonna point out we need a laser.
We have a laser, it's in a safe
Oh,
place.
okay.
Never to be found again.
Okay,
So
now
that's,
this is the front garden.
it's,
okay.
usually I plant just a garden of annuals in the front of the house. I haven't been doing that of late because we put a metal roof on the house. Nothing survives that metal roof, so.
What's all the dark colored flowers, Marie, the
Um,
room there?
Those are celosia. This one here, there's some dark red zinnias. These are Nicotiana, celosia, and then there's some dark zinnias.
And another garden, a guardian of the garden.
A fritillary, butterflies everywhere. I did start a naturalized butterfly garden down near the secret garden, covered with monarchs. I have milkweed down there, and just amazing butterflies flitting in and out of that. So that was fun. And Jim works his magic with his camera.
That's a reflection.
That's a reflection of the cleome from the garden.
Okay, then
And,
the pumpkin.
oh, you're gonna do that? And usually I grow a pumpkin. We live down at Pumpkin Fest area down in Damerscott. And this was a couple of years after they started it. That pumpkin was almost 300 pounds. And we had trouble getting it down to the weigh-in. My son had to help us with his truck and a lift. So that went down to Pumpkin Fest and I donated it. They used it outside the library. They made this, they invite sculptors to come down and artists to work on the pumpkins. And you can go down there and see their work. If you've never done it, it's really kind of a fun thing. And that was my pumpkin that they made into a blue fish. So,
No, I'm gonna just go, we met Ken in Naples in 2006. And it was an open garden, and I'll just run through the pictures. This garden was just unbelievable.
I mean, this is all professionally landscaped and they have professional people come in and take care of the gardens. And it had rained heavily that
Yeah.
night. But that's where we met Ken for the first time. He was doing a lecture in their garage. And the house and the grounds are just beautiful. It has sold since then. And we don't know the names of, some of these are just gorgeous plants.
I have a question. What do you use to
Well, when the plants were little, I used turkey wire. I roll it out flat and cut it to fit the plant, and I put it on the ground when the red fronds are up. And as the plant grows, I just pull it up. It's a self-supporting brace for the stems. When they get bigger, I've done 2 pieces of turkey wire together, but now they're so big they have to be tied up. I put 4 stakes and I tie it with green twine. And that seems to hold them up okay. They're very big now, they do need to be divided. So this little show is in memory of Ken Liberty, who lit the flame in most of us here, I guess.
These were taken at the week before an open house or open gardens. We had a meeting at his house where the last minute plans were being made, and I took the opportunity of going out in the garden with my camera. No, it's not a baby.
You ever cut any of them in the marshmallow stage and put them in the fridge?
Yes, I've done that. It works quite well.
I have a simple question. If you go through Jefferson, how would you get to your place? Down Route 27?
No, 32. You go down Route 32,
Well, if you're coming,
off 17,
Or 17?
32 through the town, and you go up a fairly steep hill, and East Pond Road is your first right.
it's right by the lake.
We're about 7/10 of a mile down on the right-hand side.
It's yellow and blue. You
Well,
can't
you
miss it.
saw the colors, yellow, and it's supposed to be Montgomery white. It's yellow and blue.
But it's a cross through from 32 to Route 1.
If you ever get any picture of somebody rolling down a hill, I'll buy it for you.
Yeah,
You'll
it's
pay
time.
good money for it.
And that's Ken's garden. Now, we all know that Ken's garden was fantastic, it was very, very nice. Somebody here has a better,
Roger Lysette is the peony whisperer. And some of these are from his yard.
and I unfortunately don't have as many as I would like to have. So I'm coming up.
No, sure.
I'll get another memory card, a terabyte or something. Beautiful Bartzell. Nobody? Nobody figured these were roses?
Yeah,
I was hoping. Yeah. I threw that in there just as a test.
That speaks for itself. You can't ever have just one, even though I preach restraint. Once you get one, it
For the
just
folks.
captures you.
For the folks behind us, as we said, we can't just have one. We're going to have to expand the peony bed, thanks for the pleasure of your company tonight, Marie and myself. Thank you.
One of the gardens we visited is White Frost Farm in Ludlow, Vermont.
Vermont, right, yeah.
And they started a peony garden, and the same thing happened to them. They had to divide their peonies, and they dug up their entire backyard and made a business out of selling peonies. and pay their taxes.